when an American reporter posed the question about what would be done with respect to the vicious assassination of Jamal Khashoggi. Donald Trump reprimanded her for her insubordination as if she were a member of the U.S. Armed Forces, and then proceeded to say, as Mrs. Khashoggi said, that her late husband was controversial. There were people who didn't like him. And then with respect to the assassination, he said shamefully and scandalously, things happen. Things happen. Let that sink in for a second. Everyone knows the truth. Following up on Mrs. Khashoggi's point, it can't be said enough. Jamal Khashoggi was an American journalist, and he wrote for the Washington Post. He was a critic of the brutal human rights violations and repression taking place in Saudi Arabia. And when he was traveling in Istanbul, Turkey, he was abducted by 17 members of Mohammed bin Salman's security team. He was strangled, and then he was drawn and quartered, dismembered, assassinated by Saudi Arabia. And this is what our president describes in the compressed formulation of things happen. And that pretty much captures his attitude towards the whole thing. In fact, earlier he had said to a traveling member of his administration who was on his way to Saudi Arabia that he should remind Mohammed bin Salman that we saved his posterior, although that wasn't the word used by our profane and vulgar president. So understand what's going on here. Saudi Arabia was the very first place where Donald Trump traveled during his first term in office. It was the first, I believe, or perhaps second place he traveled in his second term in office. His family is deeply ensconced as a business partner with Mohammed bin Salman. And you remember Mohammed bin Salman's sovereign fund board recommended against going into business with Jared Kushner, the presidential son-in-law, because he had no experience and wasn't qualified. They unanimously recommended against it. They were overruled by Mohammed bin Salman after the first term, precisely because he knew that Donald Trump had saved his posterior when it came to the assassination of Mr. Khashoggi. And Jared Kushner waltzed off with more than $2 billion in money from the royal family, plundered from the people of Saudi Arabia. We need to just remember this, that Saudi Arabia is an authoritarian tyranny. There is no freedom of speech there for political opponents of the regime. There's no freedom of press there. There is no freedom of political competition there. There is no due process there. And there are people in jail for years and decades because of a tweet they sent. Think about that for a second. They sent a tweet that offended the royal crown prince, and they have been taken away from their families and thrown into prison in Saudi Arabia for decades. And let's just say that Mohammed bin Salman is having a lot more effect on our government and our society than our government and society are having on him. That is, we are being drawn in the direction of authoritarian monarchy and tyranny right now. We just got back from debating an absurd resolution on the horrors of socialism, clearly meant to embarrass the new mayor of New York, who's in town, meeting with President Trump. And so while we were discussing the horrors of democratic socialism, this very week, the horrors of theocratic authoritarianism were completely ignored and endorsed by Donald Trump and this administration and by our Republican colleagues in Congress.
So with that, we can take some questions.
I know this week several members of the Democratic Party did meet with the Crown Prince. What is your reaction to that, especially when Leader Jeffries said that, Leader Jeffries met with him? What's your reaction to that?
Look, I think that we, as the preeminent power on the planet, as a leader, really up till recent times of the democratic free world, we have to deal with nations, sometimes unsavory nations. We may take meetings with the leader of North Korea and China and Russia and Saudi Arabia, for that matter. But that doesn't mean we don't recognize them for who they are, that we whitewash their record, that we try to wipe away history, and in this case, a brutal murder, which is what the president did. And that's what really spurred me to action. As I said, there were two calls that were particularly concerning to me during my time at the White House: the Ukraine call and this call. And I think, given what we've seen in the ensuing years and the president's own comments and the Woodward book, where he said that he saved MBS's ass, and how much profit he and his family have received from Saudi Arabia, I think releasing the call and the truly brutal facts and circumstances that we're very well aware of are critically important for the American people to understand. Also, to provide Ms. Khashoggi some closure, that her husband's life was meaningful. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm not exactly sure what transpired in terms of the contents of those meetings, and I'm hoping to get a readout. I certainly hope that any colleagues who met with the Royal Crown Prince or anybody else in his staff used the opportunity to press the case of hundreds of political and religious prisoners rotting in Saudi jails right now.
So what's the process for releasing the transcript? I mean, can the Congress do anything in that regard? And I also have an unrelated question. Since, given your background, what do you make of the peace deal proposal or peace plan?
Yeah, so to your first question, look, obviously Congress can act. We would need bipartisan support, and I would, right now, unfortunately, my Republican colleagues are lacking in a trait, bravery. But, the president can also release a transcript on his own. And we saw that with the Ukraine call. The president decided to release a transcript, and he felt like he had nothing to hide. And he said he was doing it in the name of transparency. Obviously, there were different thoughts. The president was ultimately impeached for that. But if the president has nothing to hide in this call that I'm referring to, he can release that as well.
I want to ask, if this transcript is not released, are there other types of interviews, pieces of information, other ways that you could kind of glean more about the relationship between the president and MBS?
Well, I mean, the short answer is yes. And you could look at the other public information that the president has put out there. This comment that he made in the Woodward book, that he saved MBS's ass. You could look at all of the different transactions that the president has been involved in and his family. But you could also, I think you would need to go back to an earlier point, and the conversation might be that point, where you can see where there was an offer of something, and then in exchange, the president got something in return. And so I think you could look at the entire course of conduct, and frankly, in my opinion, that call was shocking. And I'm sorry, to your second question about the peace deal in Ukraine, to me, this looks like terms that were dictated from Vladimir Putin to Donald Trump to direct the capitulation of the Ukrainians, and it's shameful and unacceptable.
Is this laying the groundwork for a potential future impeachment effort or investigation if the Democrats were to take control of the House?
Look, I'm a prosecutor, so I deal in facts and evidence. And so I think that any conversation regarding impeachment is probably premature. But there are serious concerns about the president's conduct, everything from his threats against Democratic lawmakers yesterday to a whole series of conduct, including conduct from a call during his first term. And so I think it's premature to talk about any formal procedures, but there are plenty of questions that need to be answered. And I see my colleague. You have nothing. Okay. Okay.
What he said.
Okay.
My comments. Yeah.
All right.
I just want to say the condoning by President Trump of the assassination of Mr. Khashoggi preceded by one day President Trump essentially endorsing threats against the lives of our colleagues who simply insisted that disobedience of unlawful orders is required for people in the military or by anybody in the government. So we cannot allow a situation to develop where the President of the United States is condoning and signaling the acceptability of assassination of foreign leaders or leaders in America.
I know you can't say exactly what is on the call due to classification, but can you be at least general about why the call was concerning to you? Just give us anything more specific than just saying that it's shocking.
Well, look, I think I've been specific in describing the facts and circumstances, using the terminology of quid pro quo, the ensuing benefits that the president reaped. That's as specific as I am prepared to be. I think we need to demand that the president be transparent, that he release the call transcript, that he is transparent with the American people, and frankly provide some closure to Ms. Khashoggi. So I think we'll wrap it there, and I just want to say thank you again for being out here, for being brave, and for continue to fight for your husband. Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khashoggi.
Thank you so much for your bravery.
It's really good to see you. Anything?